We're going to call the ACT Committee meeting to order. It is, 5:31. It's got myself, Nick Allen, Brian McGinnis, and Patrick McCoy. Item number 2 is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. Yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't be brief. First of all, I would like to ask permission. I'm told I have to ask the committee first permission if I would be allowed to show something up on the screen. It'll be from media.
Sure, just a couple minutes then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Thank you. Family Ties of Legacy. This is a group that is done by just individuals, citizens within the community. Sorry about this. Get them off of there. And this is not just historical, but this is community development. For the last 3 administrations in Westchester, mayoral administrations, we've been talking about having task forces and community task force. I don't like to use the term minority. I use melanic because we all are of melanin and all of brotherhood together. So these are the things that need to be propagated and brought together. This specifically I'm bringing up because with Juneteenth coming on and this dealing with the Civil War, if you scroll up, you'll notice that all these personnel that are in yellow were part of the 54th Massachusetts. 48 of our citizens in Westchester were members of the 54th. If you saw the movie Glory, they talked about that. This is the same group they're talking about. Companies A through J, we had 48 citizens that were members of that there. At Fort Sumter, 50% of the troops on the assault of Fort Sumter were lost in one day. And we were the hub of that, of our families there. On June 1st, the rededication, and we couldn't bring this up here, of the Shaw Memorial was done in Boston, Massachusetts. The descendants of those soldiers and families were invited up for a whole affair that was going on. And I bring that point there because this is something that at a national level, if that could be recognized at a national level, that locally, that citizens and members of the community could be brought to a program, this is something we need here in Westchester itself. And so my proposal that I would like to ask in consideration with a group, that a subcommittee or subgroup be adjoined to either the Historic Commission or independently of itself, that events and I'm not going to call it materials, but information can be shared like this in the community on an ongoing basis. I myself, I am on the Historic Commission, and because of either apathy or resignment, these areas are not being touched. So independently, and I know the other groups are bringing community groups together and faith-based groups and just groups in general. If we could bring something of this together, of this nature, it can do mountains for what's going on in our community today. And in closing, if I could scroll down one, please, where it goes up top, going up that way. Please go to Family Ties and go to Family Achievements. And as you go to Achievements, Pioneers and Founders. Again, this website shows, and you might recognize there, even Hazel Johnson Brown, the first general, Black general in the Army that was in the nursing corps, Brigadier General, right from Westchester. And all these people that you're seeing are family, linked in one family. So if you imagine the research that was done with this family one, if we could do this with the others within there, how much we would find, how much we learn, what we could do in this community as far as esteem. Frederick Douglass, who was commonly known as Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, that we know as Frederick Douglass, he talked about without struggle, there's no progress. And he also said that power concedes nothing without a demand. We have the power, we have the positions, we have the ability to do so. And yes, in these times and what's going on in communities, it is a struggle, but we can have both progress and we can get our demands met. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If I could just ask a couple questions really quick, just in terms of the subcommittee or the committee,
Yes.
and I guess the tasks that they would accomplish. Um, is this more geared towards like community engagement and information, or is it like a group doing research, or both, a mix?
Both, and sharing, and
Okay.
augmenting and supporting the organizations that are here within the community, like the Melton Center, the Youth Center, YMCA, anyone that we engage in wanting to do that. Then we have teens. We're over at the Historical Center, which was, Chester County Historical Society, which is now the Historical Center. You have those that have done genealogy. We've talked to the Westchester University and the other universities. They are getting together with the genealogists. We're even allowing people to take DNA tests and going on Ancestry.com and helping them build their trees and what things that you'll find out of there is yes.
Got it. Okay. And personally, just because I'm hearing about this now for the first time, I would be more comfortable with the chance to look over some of our bylaws around committees and subcommittees, just to make sure that if we do it right the first time. So would you be comfortable with coming back to this
Almost
next
definitely.
month?
And I would.
And I can meet with Mr. Metric between now and then, and we can see what makes sense. Like what would make sense to do as a borough on this?
Whatever it would take to formally do it, we're
Sure.
more than glad to do so.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for your time.
I appreciate that. Any other comments, suggestions, questions? Okay, great. Thanks so much. Any other comments, suggestions, petitions? All right, and then we can run into our discussion items here. 3A is our borough manager report.
Thank you very much. Wanted to share a few updates coming from the administration. First of all, he's not here right now, but will be for the Public Works meeting. We would like to announce and welcome our new Director of Public Works, Don Edwards. He started his third week of employment this week. He's learning all the facets of operations. He's a licensed engineer in Louisiana, Florida, and Pennsylvania, graduate of Drexel University, where he majored in civil engineering. His experience spans private and public sector. He held a variety of roles with Phoenixville Borough for 10 years, including Director of Public Works and Borough Manager for 3 years there. His most recent employment was in Florida, Louisiana, and Alabama, where he served local and federal government organizations. He led engineering, construction, and public works operations and projects in those roles. So he's been getting up to speed real quick. You'll get to know Don, and I just want to, get you all up to speed with him, and I'm really happy he's joined us. Looks like a great addition. Also, continuing on the personnel front, we welcomed an intern. His name's Ethan Fink, no relation to Nick Fink, to the position of seasonal GIS intern. He expects to graduate from Westchester University in December of this year with a Bachelor's of Science in GIS. His prior experience comes with roles with the U.S. Army and various supervisory roles when he was stationed in Alaska, Georgia, and South Korea, to name 3 places. He's helping build and maintain some of our baseline data sets right now to build out our GIS capabilities. He's working full-time 5 days a week until the semester restarts this fall. Want to update you on 3 other kind of unrelated things, but that are big on my plate. Negotiations have started with the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees Union, which represents some of our parking, public works, and police department staff personnel. We had an initial meeting where we talked about offers, and we've scheduled a follow-up meeting for later in this month. So I'll keep council in tune with progress with those negotiations. That current labor contract expires at the end of 2022. As you're all aware, the special event permit was approved for the closure of Gay Street. So I just want to pause and say thank you to everybody who made a phone call, sent an email. We owe a debt of gratitude to the person to my right here for bulldogging this process along. So I really appreciate you, Dana. Thank you. Help on a lot of things, and especially getting this special event permit through. We are still working concurrently on getting the ownership of the road transferred to the borough, so we'll have an update on that as soon as we can get some progress going in that direction. We have a action item on this month's agenda for council to consider a planning process to investigate some and specify a long-term solution where we can for a better design and better infrastructure to facilitate opening and closure of the streets this year. So we have that professional service agreement in our attachment folders for, I believe, it's either in Public Safety or Public Works Committee's folder. We are getting started with our budget and planning for 2023 internally. You'll hear more about it shortly. And we're targeting the August committee meetings to begin that conversation with council. And that's all I have for the matters report this month.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Friday morning went really well. We had a little bit of a dress rehearsal because of the delay. We had to mobilize some people the week prior to move some of the infrastructure into place to stage it. So we worked out the kinks, even though we didn't close the road Memorial Day weekend, but the closure went really well. And I was unfortunately unavailable to see for myself how reopening went on Monday because I was in jury duty, but I believe everything went flawlessly, or I would have heard about it. Some, kinks to work out. So we'll keep working with the Business Improvement District. We were worried about businesses removing their chairs and tables from the roadway, but that wasn't a problem. But we have some traffic management problem. I've sat out there and observed a lot of people ducking into the intersection refuge and using them as loading zones, flipping their blinkers on, leaving the car running, and ducking down the block to pick up takeout. I don't know if that's behavior we want to keep turning a blind eye to or doing something different, whether that's a risk or not. So I'll have that conversation with the police.
Great, thanks so much. Any public comments, questions? All right, thanks again. And we can move on to discussion item 3B, which is the reapportionment of Westchester's voting wards.
Yeah, in just a second here, I'm going to send, I'm very curious to find out what the committee has to say about your ideas about the draft map. And I'm going to send Bill a link here shortly so we can put it on the big screen. But there is a piece of information y'all should be aware of. We dug through our records and we found a memo from the manager in 2011, Ernie McNeely, to council the last time the ward boundaries were changed, where Chester County Voter Services objected to the borough's reapportionment because the boundaries weren't coincident or same as census block boundaries. Now that could create a problem because, as you know, Nick, we looked at sub-census block geography to divide up the student population. So we were scheduling a meeting, myself, the borough solicitor, and the director of Chester County Voter Services, just to iron this detail out. We couldn't get it done because they're busy hand recounting Republican primary Senate ballots right now. So as soon as they have a little bit of breathing room, we're going to be able to meet with them and get an answer on that issue. But let me send a link here to Bill just a second.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Lorgus, coming up.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, I'm Eric Lurgus from 117 East Biddle Street. I'm actually here for the parking committee, and I got my times mixed up. So, Sean, I'm going to leave these with you. I just sent you an email. But while we're talking about the ward system, I looked at the map that you guys looked at, I guess it was last month. And there was one ward that crossed over High Street into what's now, like, I guess, the 4th ward. And I would simply say that I think that if it is all possible to keep the wards like with High Street as the boundary, that would be best, because at some point we get to the point where someone driving south on, say, Matlack Street is going to go to the second ward, the fourth ward, the third ward, and the fourth ward. And it just becomes a big jumble as to where the wards really are. So to the degree that simplicity can be attained, I recommend that. Thank you.
I do, Mr. Lorgus, I do think that that is the concern. It's actually the third ward goes into the fourth. Correct. I do object to that. I'm the third ward because of the natural boundaries. Also because the Public Works Garage would now be in the third ward. However, the people who vote in the fourth ward would be voting there. What we want to do is try to keep all of the voting locations within their respective wards. And this would actually do that with the exception of Ward 7, I believe. Ward 7 votes at the library. There's no other location I don't know of in that ward. We would have to talk to the committee people. What's that? Okay. So that could be a possibility. That would have to be run also by Voter Services and Sean and the committee people to do that. But I mean, if we bring back that portion or put back that portion into the fourth ward, adjust the wards between the third and the fifth, I think we would be okay. I did speak with Councilwoman Vaccaro about that. I mean, we came to a brief agreement, an understanding, I should say, that the northern part of Price Street would be incorporated into the third ward, and the fifth ward would begin with the southern part of Price Street, all of Sharpless going on down. Currently, as it stands, the voting location in the fifth ward is actually in the third ward because of Sharpless Street. So that would make everything, for the most part, intact. And I think that that's our goal for simplification. As you mentioned, having 4 wards on the west side of town and 4 wards on the east side of town, and using High Street as a natural divider, I think that that would be the best practice moving forward. So yes, I am in agreement. I do think we need to make these slight changes. Hopefully, when we meet with Voter Services, we can do that.
And personally, I would say like my number one priority for this is making sure that the student population doesn't really skews things quite a bit the way they are now. And I'd say fixing that is my number one priority. That might come under fire here with this meeting coming up. And that is what it is. And then I'd say my second priority is like I'd love to see that area that juts out kind of get taken back in if possible. So having those like natural boundaries maintained would be probably my second priority. And then my third would be, Mr. McGinnis, what you were talking about with making sure we're actually voting inside the ward. I'd love to be able to knock out all 3. And we'll see if that can be done. We're gonna have to schedule a productive meeting now that I'm done with COVID, Mr. Metrick. But I'm also off work this week, so we can work during the day at some point on that. But I agree.
I just mentioned that the original ward map, the third ward, and I'm not sure what the other one was, maybe the fifth ward, they actually, the dormitories are split between 2 wards. Right now, they're almost all in the fifth ward, right? Yeah. So back in the beginning, I think the third ward had part of it and the fifth ward had part. So it split up a little bit. But, I know it's a conundrum. It can be worked out, but it sounds like you guys are in agreement that, you should try to keep the lines as simple as possible. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to try to get that taken care of if we can, for sure.
I've got to go. And it looks like I'm going to be blown to the next meeting. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming in. Any other comments, suggestions, questions? It's a fun little math problem. All righty. We'll go ahead then and move on to item 4A, which is to approve our May meeting minutes. Any questions, concerns? All righty, we're good on our minutes. Any other business? Then we will go ahead and adjourn at 5:51. Thank you.